Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago Auditorium. In order to ensure a pleasurable and safe experience at this evening's presentation, we ask that you listen attentively to the following safety announcement. In the unlikely event of an emergency, we ask that you make your way in an orderly manner towards the nearest exit. These are located to the rear of the seated areas of both the main house and the balcony levels. Please take the time now to identify these exits. Once through these exits, proceed left or right towards the staircase using the emergency exit, which is the same as the exit from the auditorium. Do not use the elevator. Once in the staircase, use the handrail and keep moving downwards to the ground floor, where further instructions will be given by the bank's security personnel. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Central Bank Auditorium is committed to keeping you safe while at the theater. We therefore ask that you practice good hand hygiene by making use of our sanitizing stations located adjacent to the elevator entrance on each level. We thank you for your patience and attention as we all do our part to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Please enjoy this evening's presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Ladder We Ascend, a book launch presented by the WALDRON family. The theme of the book is about passing on the family legacy through a story which is both an African and universal tradition. My name is Zara Cielto Bowren, and this is my cousin, Akel Bowren, and we will be your hosts this evening. Please stand for the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago.
Please remain standing for opening prayer. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for it is you who have instituted the family in creation when you created the first man and the first woman. And we thank you for blessing that union. And today, as we are gathered to celebrate what you've done, in particular with the Waldron family, we ask that you would draw near and bless this evening's proceedings. We thank you for the privilege to gather for this milestone celebration. As we, the descendants of the Waldron family, our specially invited guests, our friends and family members far and wide, all join to appreciate and celebrate this moment. May you be with us in these proceedings. In Jesus' name, amen. You may have your seats. As we begin our proceedings this evening, we would like to acknowledge and extend special greetings to some special people with us this evening. Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley, wife of Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Senator the Honorable Mrs. Paula Gopi-Skoon, Minister of Trade and Industry. The Venerable Archdeacon Kenley Baldeo, the Anglican Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Narad Tawari, Chief Executive Officer of AmCham, Ms. Deborah Lalu, Secretary General, Trinidad and Tobago, the National Commission for UNESCO of the Ministry of Education, Ms. Shanna Israel, Marketing Coordinator of the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, Dr. Anthony Watkins, Professor Emerita Rhoda Reddock, Professor of Gender, Social Change and Development, and former Deputy Principal of the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago, the Waldron family, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome all. At this time, we will have a welcome address which will be performed, or done rather, by Mr. Leslie Bowdron, the chairman of Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited. Currently, Mr. Bowdron is retired, and he was trained as a social worker, anthropologist, and project manager. He last served as External Relations Advisor, Social Performance for Shell Trinidad and Tobago. Prior to this job, he worked as a Social Performance Manager for BG Trinidad and Tobago, a change management consultant for the Health Sector Reform Program at the Ministry of Health, and a project coordinator for the ILO CIDA Regional Child Labor Project in the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. A former program director of YTEP, he is currently the chairman of Families in Action, chairman of Merle's Hairdressing Supplies, and a director of the Herbarium. And most importantly to me, he's also my father. So please join me in welcoming Daddy.
Thank you, Akel, but we never say daddy in formal functions, but I'll excuse it. Okay, presenters Zara and Akel, Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley, wife of the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator and Honorable Mrs. Paula Gopiskun, Minister of Trade and Industry, Archdeacon Kenley Baldeo of the Anglican Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Nira Tiwari, CEO of AmCham, Ms. Deborah Lalu, Secretary General, Trinidad and Tobago National Commission for UNESCO of the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Israel, Marketing Coordinator of TTMA, Mr. Watkins, Anthony Watkins, an old colleague and friend of mine, Professor Emerita Rhoda Reddock, Professor of Gender, Social Change Development, and former Deputy Principal of the University of the West Indies. Rhoda and her sister were also schoolmates of my sister and I way back in primary school days, so don't try to guess any ages there. Welcome, Rhoda. The Waldron family, distinguished guests, members of the media. Thank you all for attending, and welcome to the launch of our family book, The Ladder We Ascend. Your support and presence reinforce the importance of us telling our stories and cementing those links between past, present, and future generations. Stories like these can generate pride in our young people once they learn about the strong legacy left by those who went before. At this point, we wish to extend a warm welcome to all invited guests. Thank you for coming. But please bear with me, as on behalf of the family, I extend a special welcome to the following invitees. First of all, a very special welcome to Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley, as I said, wife of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, attorney at law, and partner in the law firm of M.G. Daly and Partners. Mrs. Clark Rowley's father, Orison Clark, was a close friend of the Waldron family, having grown up with them in Woodbrook. The Clarks live in Alberta Street, and the Waldrons at 57 Carlos Street. I've been told that Carlos Street was the most popular street in Woodbrook because of the large families with children. And in reflecting, I remember that's why there were always so many games and parties in Carlos Street. It was the street with all the families. And a special welcome to the Senator, the Honorable Mrs. Paula Gopiskun, a dynamic Minister of Trade, who knew Auntie Merle and Auntie Elsie, both deceased earlier this year. She has been a strong supporter of CHERYL in business. She was a special guest at the Herbarium Limited Shamir Long Service Staff Awards in 2018. And in 2019, she headed the trade mission to Cuba, in which the Herbarium Limited was a member represented by Dr. Abba Bowles-Mortley, who is the International Sales Manager for the Herbarium Limited and a Director of Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited, also known as MHSL. So you may have switching between MHSL and Merle's Hairdressing. Mr. Niwa Tiwari, special welcome, also the CEO of AmChan, of which the Herbarium Limited is a member. We were hoping to recognize Dr. Hilaire, but unfortunately he could not make it this afternoon, but we also want to extend our greetings and thanks for him for allowing us to use the facility. Bishop Claude Berkeley, he's not here, but we also want to extend our greetings to him, and we wish to express our deepest condolences to him and his family. Mrs. Berkeley and Bishop Berkeley were special friends of the Waldron. To all our distinguished guests who have touched our lives in some way, a warm and hearty welcome to this launch of the ladder we ascend by the Waldron clan. The first step on this ladder commenced in 1899, and we are still climbing. It started with Margaret Waldron, my maternal grandmother, who was an English teacher, so we all have to be on our P's and Q's with our grammar, who put pen to paper and started this chronicle filled with significant events in her life and gave it to CHERYL, my cousin, to type in 1988. Please join us as we memorialize this journey to the launch of this book today. Hopefully these types of stories can help us as a society, to avoid the pitfalls and setbacks of those who have gone before, yet build on their positive contributions. Join us in our journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Leslie, for that welcome address. Next, we will have a musical interlude by panist Jelani Cialto. Jelani has been playing pan for 22 years. He currently plays with Renegade Steel Orchestra. He's the great-grandson of Margaret and Percival Waldron, and he's also my brother. I invite Jelani to the stage. Thank you, Jelani, for the musical interlude. Next, we will have Senator the Honorable Mrs. Paula Gopi-Schoon, Minister of Trade and Industry, delivering greetings. Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon was reappointed Minister of Trade and Industry on August 19, 2020. She has been a member of Parliament since 2007 and previously served as Minister of Foreign Affairs. In her second term as Minister of Trade and Industry, she aims to continue building upon and expanding programs initiated in the last 5 years in an effort to improve the export capacity of the local manufacturing sector and position Trinidad and Tobago as the business and trade hub of the Caribbean. She will also continue to lead the charge towards stimulating domestic and foreign investments while implementing policies to enhance the global competitiveness of TNT. She believes in continuous stakeholder engagement to ensure participation in the growth and development of all sectors for a sustainable and vibrant economy. Her personal interests extend to the deepening of Caribbean integration, and she believes in and is committed to equal opportunities for personal growth, self-expression, and participation in the development process of Trinidad and Tobago for all citizens. I invite Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. And let me recognize Mrs. Sharon Rowley, wife of the Honorable Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, the Venerable Kenny Baldeo, Archdeacon of the Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. CHERYL Bowles, the entire Waldron family, very distinguished guests, and please pardon the rest of the protocols. And it truly is heartwarming to be here to celebrate with you the official launch of the book, The Ladder We Ascend, encapsulating the history and legacy of the herbarium, CHERYL, and Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited's journey. I recall addressing the Herbarium Staff Awards dinner and ceremony in 2017 and commending Ms. CHERYL Bowles on her vision and strong leadership. And today's book launch puts a spotlight on the successful trajectory of the Waldron family, starting with the solid foundation set by matriarch grandmother Margaret Waldron, who I now have learned was a teacher, and reinforced by Mother Merle, whom I knew, and I wouldn't want to give you a full description of her, and taken to new heights by CHERYL, and now expanded internationally by daughter, Dr. Abba Mortley. And now Abba's daughter is dabbling in sciences, and you don't know where that's going to lead, right? So this dynamic family business has grown into one of the most visible local wellness brands, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but beyond our shores. Indeed, the brand has become synonymous with the best of the Caribbean aesthetic. Many of us can identify with CHERYL, reminiscing fondly about the early products and proud to witness the growth and the transformation of this indigenous enterprise, fueled by a determination to adapt when and where necessary, as they've had to, and including embracing modern packaging and technology while never compromising on high quality. And this story is a manifestation of the rise from a small family business to one that is globally competitive. CHERYL can boast of a wide selection of products available online, as well as in physical locations in both Trinidad and Tobago, and not one, but 2 spas located in Canada. And we recognize your important contribution to Trinidad and Tobago as a manufacturer and exporter of innovative products and services. So let me say very generally, ladies and gentlemen, that small and medium-sized businesses like CHERYL are viewed as the backbone of our economy, contributing to more than 30% of the country's gross domestic product and employing more than 200,000 persons. And in support of businesses such as these, the government has instituted several initiatives, including grant programs, which we want SMEs to access so that they too can be successful and grow. And I'm certain that the ladder we ascend will provide valuable insights to companies at different stages of development and not only educate readers, but inspire us all as well. That this is a woman-led business in every respect is worthy of very special commendation. 4 generations of women have contributed their expertise, their talent, their experience, and specialization in biochemistry and materials and chemical engineering to create a lasting legacy. And at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, we have been actively promoting what is called the She Trades Initiative and Platform, conceptualized by the International Trade Center. And She Trades seeks to connect the already registered 700 women locally and some 40,000 women internationally with opportunities to grow and enhance their businesses. And Shamir, I would like to encourage you to join this platform if you haven't so done already, as through this networking session, these sessions, businesses such as yours can find new growth avenues as well as motivate other women entrepreneurs. Your business not only excels in the manufacturing and services sector, but also has been a true demonstration that women are the bedrock of this society. You have used your success to give back through various charities and organizations. And last month, I noted your support for breast cancer awareness through the commemoration of Pinktober. And I understand the proceeds from this book will go towards supporting children at the primary school level. And as I close, allow me once again to congratulate you on the launch of The Ladder We Ascend. But I'll still take the time to reminisce a little bit on Merle, whom I met in my mid-20s. You know, I'm a girl from South. I married someone in the North, and their family, they were also from Woodbrook, and they knew Merle very well. So I couldn't escape Merle, and Merle was affable. Merle was so attractive, always well coiffed, always well made up, spoke very well, but please, you didn't want to cross her. But I love her dearly, and also Elsie, and also Joyce. So I take this opportunity to wish the Waldron family and their staff and their families continued success. Of course, may you all, especially the next generation, soar to greater heights. And we really do want to see them, the next generation, excel and be involved in the family business. So I congratulate the entire family on The Ladder We Ascend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Gopi Skoon. Every legendary story has a beginning. There is always a part of the journey that must be told. And so this time, we will have Ms. CHERYL Bowles, who will be giving the journey our legacy. CHERYL Bowles is a biochemist, entrepreneur, creator of Shamir Products and Day Spas, former deputy chairman of Swimcall, a founding director of YTEP, Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited, and an NGO known as HOPS. She established 19 years ago the annual CHERYL Bowles Challenge Trophy and bursary for the Best Final Year Students Project in Natural Science at UWI St. Augustine, and is the recipient of awards and invitations by the UN, the UNDP, the White House, for various women business forums. Let's welcome Ms. CHERYL Bowles to the podium.
Good evening to everybody. All protocols observed. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend our very prestigious launch, The Ladder We Ascend by the Waldron family. The catalyst for this book is my deceased grandmother, Margaret Waldron, who in 1988 gave me her memoirs to type. Mama and Grandpa, like so many people of the early 1900s, worked assiduously and strategically to create improved opportunities for their families. Everyone here can share stories of their family's journey. The book was created during the COVID lockdown and helped to ease the tension during this time. This book is powerful, evocative, inspiring, engaging, and the potential is huge. Recently, on an overseas trip, I shared a blurb about the book with a colleague, and she shared it with another person who happened to be a filmmaker and has asked me as soon as the book is launched that she'd like to buy a copy. So all possibilities are endless. I was also driven by the passing of my two beloved aunts, Joyce and Elsie, this year to launch this book. Still with us are Auntie Leno, 98 years, and Auntie Cynthia, 88 years, who's here with us tonight. The Story Weaver. This book is a mixture, it's multi-layered, and so we had to get someone to pull it together. Here entered Felicia Chang of Let's Talk Planting. Felicia approached me about publishing our family's history years ago. Felicia is exceptional at telling stories, and she has a team which is international. She used to live in Trinidad. She's now in Africa. She had other people in Europe and in North America who work with her in researching these stories. This project was carefully crafted and involved research sending us to the archives in UK, Canada, and Trinidad. She has compiled works for the following clients: Emily Elias and the NH Group of Companies, the Salvatore family, Mrs. Hazel Manning and family, Joe Perez, Franklin and Jennifer Dolly, and Glenn Wilkes, the Hart family. The book includes several parts. It starts with the memoirs of Margaret Waldron. Here, Mama was very vulnerable about her life, the loss, the joy, intrigue, successes. It begins with her father early post-emancipation period around 1860. She wrote her last page at 90 years. She was astute, and she would look at the TV, read the papers, and would call us when she heard any wrong grammatical error. The book also includes Foundations 1 and 2. I grew up in 57 Carlos Street, Woodbrook, with all my cousins and aunts, and it was full of activity and vibrant discussion. This extended family was critical in cementing our ability together in our businesses. The business aspect of the book. This section details the growth of the Herbarium Limited and Shamir, Mercy Dressing Supplies, distributors of Biogen hair products. Shamir Canada with ABBA. I came from a professional background and decided to become an entrepreneur in the mid-80s during a recession. My colleagues at Nestle, where I worked, told me I reached Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The journey with its learning curves, missteps, and the growth have made us all stronger. Business today, post-COVID, continues to be a navigation field. I have the privilege also to collaborate with a wonderful team at Shamir who keep me updated. TikTok, IG, Hootsuite, Polyjail, Nails, etc. And I love it. Everyone here has touched our lives in some way, and we are very grateful for that. In 1983, my mother, Merle Bowles, began to distribute Baijian hair care products from Japan. Even though it was challenging, she left us the business to develop, to build for the next generation, demonstrating how important family support is to a family-owned business. Dr. Abba Bowles-Motley, my daughter, who decided one day that she wanted to forge her own pathway in Canada, did so boldly. I'll tell you a little story. She was walking one day, she was looking for a place for spas, and of course rents were very, very high. And she was walking on Brock Street, very popular, again, downtown street, and saw this place and said, I think I'm going to buy this. And she did. She and her partner did, and set up the first Shamir Spa. She's a trailblazer, social entrepreneur, a social change agent, and she's on so many different boards, chairs, so many different organizations. I don't know how she has the time. One relative has made a prediction about her past, so we will leave to see if that happens. We are very proud of her, and I noticed one of my grands I was sharing with the minister conducting experiments, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that she goes in the field of chemistry and will be here to add new products to our portfolio. The book then finishes with the legacy, the profiles of my aunts and uncles by their nieces, nephews, and great-nieces, inspirational stories and pictures. I wish again now to take a few minutes to thank my special guests for taking time out to be here. Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley. The Clarks grew up about 5 blocks from the Waldrons, as you've heard before, in Woodbrook. Thank you so much for your support and love. Senator, the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon, was an honored guest again in our Long Service Award, and again led a delegation where ABBA participated and represented the company. She's always rendered support for Shamir. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I want to commend the young ones, Akel Barin, Pastor Akel Barin, Zara Cielto Barin, Tariq Barin, representing the 4th generation of Waldron clan for part of this planning team. I pulled them together and they willingly accepted the task. They may not be aware, but they are being groomed. The Ladder We Ascend book is an important record, even though it came out 30 years later. We encourage you to share your story for the future generations, to let them know we are worthy. They have purposefulness and great legacies they can be proud of. Proceeds of the sales of the book will go to charity, and you'll enjoy reading the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Auntie Cheryl, for giving them a glimpse into the journey, our legacy. Next, we will have a reading from the book The Ladder We Ascend by Deborah Jean-Baptiste Samuel, orator. Miss Jean-Baptiste Samuel is an orator, attorney at law, and poet. She completed tertiary academic study in English literature, international relations and law, and the Nuffield Fellowship for Journalism at Wolfson College, Cambridge. Deborah is a powerhouse in dramatic poetry performance and an icon in oratory. As a pioneer, she created the Oratory Foundation for training in the oral arts, public speaking, poetry and performance, and Shakespeare. Deborah has staged 9 Shakespeare plays, the 3 most recent being The Tempest, The Taming of the Shrew, and Twelfth Night. Deborah is the author of 14 books. The last was launched in 2020 entitled Caribbean Contemplations on Shakespeare. She has presented 27 annual oratory productions. She is also the recipient of the Hummingbird Medal Gold. Welcome, Ms. Deborah Jean-Baptiste Samuel.
I, Margaret Waldron, was born on 24th January 1899 at Lewis Trace, New Grant, Trinidad. My father, Joseph Moraine, had come to Trinidad from Montserrat with his mother, who was brought here by an Englishman and his wife. He was the manager of the Nuplus Ultra Sugar Estate. My grandmother was the domestic who ran the home. My father attended a school nearby. When he left school, his mother sent him to learn a lucrative trade called the cooper's trade. I sat the competitive exam for entrance to the Women's Teachers Training College in 1918. My father died a few months before the results were published. When Mr. Beckles, the headmaster, broke the news to me that I had passed and came first in the women's exam, I was at first overwhelmed, but then became sad when I considered I had no one to finance my stay in Port of Spain. But Mr. Beckles cheered me up. He insisted that I had to accept the scholarship, and I have never forgotten his words. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Matthew 6:34. He sent a postal money order for 5 shillings every month, and with the government's additional 5 shillings, I was able to survive. I left the training college in April 1920, having attained a second-class certificate. I was then appointed assistant teacher at 5th Company EC School, New Grant. Percival Hamilton Waldron. He was born 1895. He was a road officer. He sometimes accompanied me home on a Friday afternoon. And a close relationship grew. We were married on 19th December 1923. Lena was born on 25th October 1924. A few months before, circulars were sent to all schools saying married women teachers had to resign. Carl, my first son, was born on 21st November 1925. The postmistress of New Grant retired in 1924, and the post office was moved to my home as a postal agency for which the government paid me rent. I managed the post office. Joyce was born 6th February 1928, Merle on 6th December 1929, and Sheila on 7th December 1931. Percy was transferred to Blanchisseuse in 1932. Although I heard Percy had outside women, I never made it an issue, but I most assuredly got the shock of my life when I heard Percy and Josephine Coward were cohabiting together. I was completely devastated because I had lived in and got married from her home. Here's how the truth came out. A policeman whom she had taught at school was keeping duty near a hotel in Marine Square. And he saw Percy and Josephine Coward going into that hotel. He was dumbfounded and became curious. He was still on duty when they descended the steps of the hotel at a wee hour in the morning. Out of curiosity, he kept his eyes on them. Ill news flies fast. And I suppose when the policeman went home for the weekend, he related the incident to his family who lived in the district. Mouth open, Tory jump out.
I'm not certain if I'm allowed to say this at a formal event, but wow. I think we can give another round of applause for that oration. Sounds like Miss Margaret Waldron was something else. And I can assure you that her great-great-granddaughter, who will be doing a dance for us, is just the same. Alea Williams will now be performing a dance. Alea, as I said, is the great-great-granddaughter of Margaret and Percival Waldron. She currently attends Newtown Girls RC School, and the dance she's about to perform was choreographed by Miss Marcia Charles. Please join me in welcoming Alea.
Bring down the power of love, I say. Bring down the power. The power of love, I say, is the greatest power. Stop hell and damnation. Bring down the power. Love to heal a nation is the greatest power. Destruction is blowing over this land. And now the earth is trembling with man's oppression of man. Now the time comes to sit down and rediscover what's life. Show the world the true meaning of real love power, not strife. Right now, all of them who does worship, greed and vanity must bow. Unity is the banner, so come together. I say, and this love is...
Thank you, Alea, for that lovely dance. A round of applause for her again, yes. Next, we will have Andrew Bowles and Abba Motley giving memories of the journey. Mr. Andrew Bowles, son of Vincent Bowles and Merle Bowles, both deceased, lived at 57 Carlos Street, Woodbrook, with his grandparents, Margaret and Percival Waldron. He is the father of Aishant, a graduate of Northeast London Polytechnic, with a degree in land surveying sciences. He served as the director of surveys in the Lands and Surveys Division, and he retired in 2013. As a lover and avid player of chess, he continues to compete in chess tournaments and mentors young and upcoming chess players. He also loves to read.
Dr. Abba Mortley is the daughter of CHERYL Bowles and granddaughter of Merle Bowles and great-granddaughter of Margaret Waldron. Abba continues in the family businesses as a director of the Herbarium Limited and Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited. She is the owner of Shamir Day Spa with 2 locations in Kingston, Canada. Abba graduated from Queen's Engineering with a BSc in Engineering and an MSc and PhD in Materials and Chemical Engineering from the Royal Military College of Canada. She actively volunteers in her community, and along with her partner Ted, they enjoy raising 4 children, Wyatt, Ryder, Meredith, and Otto. Please welcome now Mr. Andrew Bowles and Dr. Abba Mortley.
Greetings and all protocols observed. I have very fond memories of growing up at 57 Carlos Street, Woodbrook, with grandparents, aunts, uncles, sister, and cousins. In those days, it seems that you could fit a multitude of family in a small house and have a lively and livable home. Thankfully, there was enough yard space in which we played with other children who also lived on Carlos Street. Like so many streets in those days, there was so much community spirit, so much neighborly bonding, and a lot of interaction with other children. We actually played a lot of cricket and even football on the street, which was not as busy with traffic as happens today. In fact, I vividly recall that we had races on the pavement in the afternoon and evening period, with my grandfather keeping a watchful eye while seated in the gallery. In other words, if somebody make 5 laps and they really make 3, he was the counter. He would check on them, the other, if they say so. So he was the watchful eye. Our home was always full of talk and arguments in which the household vigorously participated in. I think we loved to argue so much that we at times even argued when we held the same view. And that hasn't changed. It got pretty noisy at times, but that was the love. That was the way we rolled. So you could picture what happened during the carnival period. Who was the best steel band, the best calypso, the best king or queen of carnival, and so on and so on. Now, all streets have their own character. It depends a lot on the people who live on it and the activities that take place on that street. Carlos Street was no exception and became very well known when my mother started her hairdressing salon constructed at the back of the house. She was well established by the early 60s. This salon was a very lively place where many attractive women were made more attractive by fabulous hairdos. I think it helped to make her one of the most well-known people in Trinidad and Tobago. When Merle moved her business from Carlos Street, the space was not too long after occupied by Auntie Leno, who started her business school there, which grew successfully to become a landmark institution. Being the son of Merle Bowles or the nephew of Leno Boren made it very easy for someone to recognize and embrace me. I mean, how often have I heard the term, "Oh, you's Merle's son?" And that is it. I'm on the map. Aunt Leno's school was not just a place for education, but was a venue for quite a number of great house parties, during our teenage years, which the siblings actually organized with others on the street, and we had some real good parties. Some of which one of them I could particularly remember being dramatically ended by my grandfather when he found it was time for everyone to find their home. Now, he did this in his pajamas. And how he did it is actually he walked in the darkness of the party. Now, if you picture Al Green, Barry White, Isaac Haynes, those days it's the early 70s, love and conscious music. And everybody near 2 o'clock, grooving, party going down nice, in darkness, rent-a-tile as they used to call it. And then while you're dancing, you see lights going on. And you could see the total confusion and shock in all the party goers because they are seeing this gentleman in his pajamas walking from the back of the party and switching on the light switches, leading out to the entrance and leaving the actual party. Well, as people got their shock over, well, the DJ seemed to have gotten it first because he stopped playing the music. And everybody just streamed out. And I could fondly remember one person saying, I feel a man was sleeping in here and he just get up and Barry White play. Not a word was spoken, not an instruction given, but just a stoic military figure in pajamas coming out of the party. So though that's the sweetness of the memories. You know, these teenage days were really exciting and enjoyable times. But as others have said, what we'd like to see with the book is really an inspiration for others to do their own story, you know, to put some narrative next to those pictures in the photo album. It doesn't have to be a book. It could be a recording. It could be done in short bits. But it's to do something. You know, Percy and Margaret actually lived through, from the World War I, II. They saw so much transition, the aeroplane, motor car, man on the moon, and it enriched their stories. And I could remember just today telling my nephew, Jelani, who played the magnificent tune, I say, you know, this COVID give you something to tell your grandchildren about. You better, you know, start doing some pen to people. So we had a talk on it. So with that, you know, I would like to thank you all for gracing us with your presence and hope that you will find that inspiration coming out of the book to do something so that the generations to come will get so much value out of it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone, and all protocols observed. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. Thanks for the introduction, Zara and Akel. And as mentioned, my name is Abu Motley, and I'm a product of all of those Waldrons who have come before me, and the great-granddaughter of Margaret Waldron, whose English lessons in the gallery of Carlos Street define the way I speak, carry, and articulate myself. It is from her that I believe we all have inherited an ingrained DNA that gives us the characteristics of tenacity, determination, love of self, and love of our family. In Carlos Street, and from the precedents set by Mama, the definition of family extends far beyond that of blood, but of community, of a group of people actively working together to make each person better and to support each other when in need. In those walls, we learned how to have fervent discussions about anything under the sun. There are no limits that are off topic in our family. At Christmas time, our whole family would get together at Carlos Street, and after playing for hours and other children going inside to open their presents, we would still be outside because all the adults were having, you know, vibrant conversations on topics, and we'd have to kind of probe to get our gifts open. And bless my husband, Ted, the first time he came to visit Trinidad, he was thrown into the throes of the Waldron arguments and discussions, and we spoke about everything from Fidel Castro to Michael Jackson. Poor fella didn't know what hit him. I'm the granddaughter of Merle Bowles, and Granny was a social butterfly, an heir to anyone who needed it. A businesswoman who laid the foundation for one of our family companies, Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited. And for those of you who knew my Granny, well, you know what I speak. Sitting at her chair on Tragwood Road was a therapy session with a great hair as a bonus. And it is from her that I believe my love of people and life come from. From those who know me, if you call me, I'll be there, and even if you don't, I'll still show up. And maybe, as alluded to by the minister, I may also have a slight temper if things don't go my way. So maybe I got that from her too. I'm the daughter of CHERYL Bowles, and what a living legacy for me. What a gift to be able to be guided and loved by such a powerhouse of a lady. Founder of Chimere, pioneer of natural products and wellness and spa services in Trinidad and in the Caribbean. My grandfather, Vincent Bowles, at my wedding described me as a child of the family. It is this dedication to family and its upward mobility that's been entrenched through all of my great aunts, my great uncles, my uncles, and now continues through myself, my cousins, and our children. The ladder we ascend speaks to how, with grit and love, that all can be accomplished. We have been given the gift and examples of how to be more and how to strive for more. We have been taught through the lessons of our family that we can accomplish anything and that the only limit set upon ourselves is ourselves. We have been conditioned to know that we individually and then combined can be pillars of support for ourselves, our community, and our country. This is the gift and the lessons that we are sharing today. My family has taught me to be a leader, a giver, but not a pushover. And I hope that when you read our story, that it empowers you to be the best version of yourself through the examples spoken about within the pages of The Ladder We Ascend. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to Abba and Uncle Andrew for those memories. I would now like to re-invite Ms. Deborah Jobberty Samuel to the stage to do another reading from the book.
Through her dedication and foresight, Mama gave her children the tools within her means to help them succeed, regardless of how challenging her own childhood and upbringing had been. Consider that in the 1930s, she purchased a house with her own money and decided to move from rural Trinidad to the capital city, Port of Spain, to better her family's future. It is phenomenal that a woman, especially at that time, negotiated the purchase of a house in Woodbrook and had the option to purchase another. The number one value that Mama instilled was independence rooted in education. To her, that was the pathway to success. Indeed, among our parents' generation, we saw Merle setting up one of the most successful salons in Trinidad. We witnessed Lenore building an influential business school, George establishing a successful dental practice, Joyce fulfilling a diplomatic posting in Canada, Elsie working at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and then at Amoco, now BP, Carl engaging as a shipping master at Trinidad's port, Cynthia and Hugh becoming successful teachers. It was in that same house on Carlos Street in Woodbrook that we, the younger generation, grew up. That household was a hive of argument and laughter. A family as comfortable discussing and debating sporting events as it was politics and social development. She set the tone with her insistence on education and intelligent discussion, all the while demonstrating humility and deep spirituality. The Waldron clan has produced natural and social scientists, doctors, dentists, electricians, environmentalists, accountants, and many more specialists. Just as our elders drove our generation to educate itself, so too have we invested in helping future generations build their competencies. Two of the other premier qualities Mama handed down to us were self-belief and confidence. Those traits fostered in us and entrepreneurial spirit. And those are the reasons our family-based business efforts continue to thrive to this day, notably through the Herbarium Limited, Chemer Canada, and Merle's Hairdressing Supplies Limited. To cement Mama and our family's legacy, our goals are to continue to build intergenerational wealth, develop a business culture that future generations can thrive in, and support them to be independent and achieve self-actualization while contributing to the development of their country. That is why we have put so much energy into succession planning. These family enterprises present serious opportunities, but it is not solely about financial profit. It is about cementing and enhancing self-belief and independence instilled by us, in us, by our elders.
We've heard from the book. We've heard others speak about the book. But up until now, we have not seen the book. And as Trinidadians and Tobagonians, we love to see. At this time, we will have the unveiling of the book, which will be done for us by Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley. Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley is the wife of Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Mrs. Clark Rowley is an attorney at law and partner in the law firm of M.G. Daly and Partners. Mrs. Clark Rowley's father, Orison Clark, was a close friend of the Waldron family, having grown up with them in Woodbrook. Before we welcome Mrs. Rowley, we just want to acknowledge as well our drummer boy, who will be assisting us with the drum roll for the unveilings. This is Malachi Benny, another great-great-grandchild of Margaret and Percival Waldron. So let's welcome now Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley. Please forgive me.
Thank you, Mrs. Rowley. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Wendy Sharp and Ms. Cynthia Allen to the stage to, The unveiling of the picture will be done by Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon. Apologies, I invite you to the stage. Thank you, Minister Gopi-Schoon. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Wendy Sharp and Ms. Cynthia Alleyne to unveil the second picture. Dr. Wendy Sharp is an orthodontist, and she's the daughter of Joyce Sharp, deceased. Ms. Cynthia Alleyne, Auntie Cynthia, is one of the daughters of Percival and Margaret Waldron. Thank you very much to everyone for the unveiling of the pictures and the cover of the book. Next, we will have presentations for tokens of our appreciation to Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley and Minister Gopi-Schoon.
It won't always be smooth and perfect, but we are a family that enjoy giving responsibility to the young ones and letting them grow. All right, let's give a round of applause. As we bring this aspect of our program to a close, we wish to formally, immensely thank Mrs. Sharon Clark Rowley, the wife of the Right Dr. Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and Attorney at Law, Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi Schoon, the Minister of Trade and Industry, the Venerable Archdeacon Kenley Baldeo, the Anglican Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Nirad Tawari, the Chief Executive Officer at AmCham, Ms. Deborah Lalu, who's Secretary General of the Trinidad and Tobago National Commission for UNESCO from the Ministry of Education, Ms. Shanna Israel, the Marketing Coordinator for the TTMA, Professor Emerita Dr. Rhoda Reddock, Dr. Anthony Watkins, Ms. Deborah Jean-Baptiste Samuel for her outstanding delivery of the 2 readings from the book, Mr. Colvin Blaze, who provided us with the live streaming services, Mr. Tariq Bowrin, who assisted with the designs of the program and the bookmark, among other things, Mr. Jelani Cialto for the musical interlude, Miss Alea Williams for her powerful dance, Mr. Malachi Benny for the drum roll during the unveiling, Mrs. John Pereira Allen for the wonderful floral arrangements that were presented, Mr. Eldon Lemont and his team for the beautiful festive decor, Miss Dionysia Brown, the photographer, the Central Bank Auditorium's team, Mrs. Juliet Kerr, Mr. Jeffrey Joseph, Miss Delise Francis, Miss Bailey, the ushers and all supporting staff, Miss CHERYL Bowles, all of the directors of the Herbarium Limited and Mills Hairdressing Supplies Limited for hosting this event, the entire Waldron family and all of its branches, all of our team members, support staff, and hospitality team, and of course, you ladies and gentlemen. We thank you all for being here with us this evening. Let's give a hearty round of applause to each and every one of you. As we leave the auditorium, we kindly ask that you remain seated until our specially invited guests exit the hall. And at this time, we do invite you to join us all outside of the hall or the auditorium into the reception area. And there you will see a table with the books on display. The books are being sold this evening at a very special discounted price, and the proceeds from the book will go to charity. We do have as well some beverages available to ensure that you do not go home thirsty. So again, thank you all for a wonderful evening. As I said before, Mrs. Sharon Rowley and Mrs. Gopi Schoon, all protocols observed, will be leaving first. All right? Thank you very much.
Hey, get that. I love me parents so. Why yo, just come along. You don't going to learn this song. Why yo, now you gonna know why I love me parents so. Why yo, hey, come go, get up. Why yo, hey.
This is Caribbean